Welcome back to another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg. Today, we got some breaking news out of the NBA that Luka Doncic has signed a 3-year contract extension with the Los Angeles Lakers worth $165 million, coming to an average of about $55 million a year. That third year does have a player option, and there is some significance as Luka would be coming into his 10th NBA season as far as big money contract there. So we're going to talk about that contract a little bit. We're going to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers in this upcoming season and kind of what we expect from them and how this sets the Lakers up for the future. There's been a lot of talk this offseason about Luka Doncic since they got eliminated from the playoffs, and the narrative has changed a lot about him from where it was a year ago when he led the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals. He was traded, obviously, by Nico Harrison, I believe in February, for Anthony Davis, and immediately the reaction was Nico Harrison is, what is he thinking? He's the worst GM on the planet, needs to be fired. Fans are chanting that. And then when the Lakers got eliminated, it seemed like some of the media narrative started to shift a little bit. Like, is Luka too out of shape? Is there any chance that Nico Harrison won this trade? Because, then they ended up with the first pick in Cooper Flag. I'm going to tell you no. Nico Harrison did not win that trade. His process wasn't sound, and it was still one of the worst trades in NBA history, but we will get into that a little bit more here in a second. Before we do, make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 1,300 subscribers, and we are getting pretty close. There's obviously not a lot of breaking news this time of year, but there's still so much to talk about as we get into this next season and still reflecting on some of the things that happened over this past season and free agency. So make sure you take a second to subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated if you would do so. So let's start with this. Contract, like I said, worth $165 million, making him the 12th highest paid player in the NBA, which is pretty crazy considering, what Luka Doncic has accomplished in this league. Now, a significant reason for that is because when you get traded in the NBA, you are no longer eligible for the Supermax contract. That Supermax contract, there's a bunch of things you have to do really in the NBA to in order to get that amount of money, which is, what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just signed, just crazy money. So he wasn't eligible for that because of the trade. But Luka Doncic is setting himself up with that third-year player option to where in 2028, he's able to sign a 5-year, $417 million extension, assuming the salary cap does what it's projected to do. So Luka's setting himself up to make crazy money here in a couple years, as long as he stays at this level. So let's talk a little bit about this offseason. Luka Doncic obviously goes to the Los Angeles Lakers, has a down year by Luka standards, averaged 28, 8, and 8, and that's only a down year because the year before that he averaged 34, 10, and 9 and led his team to the NBA Finals. Came third in MVP voting, and obviously All-Star, first team All-NBA. Luka Doncic has 5 All-NBAs, first team All-NBA in his career, which is more than Steph Curry, more than Dirk Nowitzki, more than Chris Paul, more than Kevin Garnett, Allen Iverson, Steve Nash. A lot of really good players. Luka Doncic has already achieved some things that they weren't able to in their career. So Luka Doncic has had an unbelievable start to his career, but when they lost in the playoffs, the media narrative started to become, is Luka out of shape? Is Luka too heavy? Does Luka care enough about being a great player, and will he age well? So this offseason, we saw in Men's Health that came out a couple days ago that Luka Doncic has lost a lot of weight, is taking this offseason very seriously. Looks like he's in great shape. They call him Skinny Luka. And, this was significant because when the Lakers made this trade, the only way that the Lakers would have looked bad in any capacity in that trade is either two things. Luka's career ends super early, way earlier than we expected, or Luka doesn't re-sign with the Los Angeles Lakers this offseason like expected, and he enters free agency and, kind of sees what's out there. Well, both of these questions have kind of been answered because Luka obviously just signed this contract committing to the Los Angeles Lakers. He said he wanted his number up there on the rafters. He wants to be with the Lakers for a long time. The other question when it comes to his health, What's so interesting is that even if Nico Harrison was right, that if they would have re-signed Luka, he wouldn't have taken the offseason seriously, and he would have got overweight and his career wouldn't have lasted long enough. He woke a sleeping giant by trading him, disrespecting him, embarrassing him on a national stage, trading him to the Los Angeles Lakers. And now Luka Doncic is taking this offseason very seriously. So really, Nico Harrison could have almost been in a lose-lose scenario. Now, ultimately, you have to re-sign Luka Doncic, and I don't want to get too much into it because it's been talked about a million times, but your fan base loved Luka Doncic. So regardless of, what Luka does 6, 7, 8 years from now, in order to keep your job and keep the fans happy at the Dallas Mavericks organization, you have to keep a guy like Luka Doncic. And we all know it was, probably the worst trade in NBA history, but I do want to continually bring up the fact that Nico Harrison was an idiot. This was a terrible trade. I hate the fact that he got on there and said, I hope fans are starting to see the plan. No, the plan was he got lucky that you hit the lottery and got the first overall pick in Cooper Flagg, but you still might not get back to the NBA Finals like where Luka Doncic brought you last year. So ultimately, still a terrible trade by Nico Harrison. We're not going to relitigate that too much. We do want to talk about going forward. Luka Doncic is obviously a pretty significant gambling favorite, not the favorite, but he's one of the top 3 to win this upcoming NBA MVP this year. And that would be significant for Luka Doncic's career. But he saw a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just win an MVP and the NBA Finals. And you're starting to see, Jokic is stacked up MVPs and also has a championship. He's seeing some of his contemporaries, win titles, win MVPs, and Luka is looking at it like, if I don't get on this quick, I could be left in the dust. So this is an important year for Luka Doncic, especially because it's potentially the last year he will have LeBron James by his side. Now, because of the fact that they didn't sign LeBron to an extension, after this season, the Lakers will have about $54 million in cap space going into the next offseason. That's assuming that they re-sign Austin Reeves to about what's expected from him. So the Lakers could potentially have a lot of cap space heading into next offseason. Now they don't have, it doesn't look like it's going to be a super stacked free agency next offseason, but that's not the only way that you acquire players. Obviously, you can acquire them through the draft, but you can also trade for players, and the Los Angeles Lakers are a desirable franchise. Now, I want to say off the rip that I am someone that does have a little bit of skepticism when it comes to the Lakers this next season. Obviously, you had a guy like DeAndre Ayton, who the Portland Trailblazers paid to kind of go away, a team that's kind of up and coming and, could have used a player young. I think DeAndre Ayton's only 27 years old. So the Trailblazers paying him to go away, the Suns trading him for virtually nothing a couple years before that. I don't call me the biggest DeAndre Ayton fan in the world. When you're talking about this Lakers team, they are pretty heavily reliant that DeAndre Ayton takes this offseason seriously, that he comes back, that he's healthy, because they still don't have a lot of depth when it comes to the big man position. They obviously have Jackson Hayes as a backup, whatever you think of him. And then they do have, I think Maxi Kleber's still on the roster technically. But they're still lacking in that big man position. And they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, replaced him with Marcus Smart. Now, as many of you know, I am a Boston Celtics fan, and Marcus Smart is one of my favorite players that I've got to watch over the last 15 years. That doesn't mean that he's the best fit everywhere he's going to go. And I don't know that at this point in his career that he is a huge net positive when you're talking about playing next to a LeBron and Luka, because you need someone who can guard fast, shifty guards. And I think at this point, Marcus Smart is not able to do that in the same way that he used to be able to. He still can guard your, big guards, big forwards, and that definitely has some value. But, LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves, their issue kind of is that they can't guard those fast, shifty guards, the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Ja Morant, guys you run into in the Western Conference. So it'll be interesting to see how that pairing sets up. Marcus Smart's an okay catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. So, there's some value to that trade. But ultimately, I think the Lakers are still probably like fourth place in my mind in the Western Conference. You still have the Thunder, the Nuggets. I think made some moves this offseason. I think they're improved, and I think last year they were right there. And then I still think the Rockets made enough noise in the offseason that they're going to be right there in the mix, probably with the Lakers, with the Timberwolves, teams like that. All in all, awesome that the Lakers got this done on the first day of free agency. Luka didn't want to be a distraction. He wanted to go ahead and get his contract signed. He's setting himself up for future success. He's setting his team up for success this year. I really like that that's how the Lakers handle business, and I like that that's how Luka handled business. We see, especially right now in the NFL, that the Cowboys are refusing to sign Micah Parsons, and it's creating a huge distraction. They're going to have to end up paying him more money than they would have before, and that's really just never good for anybody. So getting this deal done, knowing that Luka is going to be a Laker, they obviously have new ownership. It's been a huge offseason for the Los Angeles Lakers. Heading into next year, could be LeBron James' last season in the NBA. Are they a real contender? Like I said, I look at them right there in that second tier in the Western Conference, right behind the Nuggets and Thunder, maybe right with your Rockets, your Timberwolves. We'll see if any other teams are able to sneak into that class, certainly. But all in all, solid offseason for the Los Angeles Lakers, but I still think it's going to be a little overhyped by a lot of what you see in the media, because the big names, the Deandre Ayton and Marcus Smart are, and I should have mentioned, they also signed Jake LaRavia, who's a decent forward. I also meant to mention, Luka Doncic tweeted right after he signed this deal that he's going to be donating $5 million of the contract to help 77 athletes around the world. He said that he wanted to help them achieve their dream in the same way that he was able to do so. So I thought that was super cool. I am a Luka Doncic fan. I will say that. And I was disgusted by the way that Nico treated him, the way that they tried to shift the narrative in a lot of ways. So I am very interested to see, does Luka come back with that vengeance that it looks like he has, the way that he's been training this offseason. All in all, I'm interested to see what you all think of this contract, what you think the 2025-26 Lakers will accomplish. Will they be able to take that next step and make the NBA Finals, potentially win the NBA Finals with a little weaker Eastern Conference? Or will they continue to be where they've been, kind of fringe second, third round playoff team? All in all, getting Luka Doncic made it to where they probably don't have to reset in the same way that they would have. If they would have kept Anthony Davis, when LeBron retired, you probably would have saw a reset from the Los Angeles Lakers. But when you bring a guy in like Luka, who's such an offensive hub, such an offensive engine, that a lot of players want to play with Luka. And obviously we saw he recruited Marcus Smart. There's a lot of guys that have loved playing next to Luka Doncic. It makes them better, sets them up for open threes, open lobs, things like that. So that's all we're going to get into today when it comes to the Los Angeles Lakers. As we get closer to the season, we will do a full breakdown of who we think in the Western Conference is going to come out of there, and kind of do a rankings when it comes to all of that. But make sure that you take a second to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our NBA content coming forward. Appreciate y'all taking the time to watch. Cyborg out.